This is what a multi-million-dollar art licensing opportunity looks like, and I'm going to show you what I'd do to build it. I'm Professor Steve, and I teach independent artists how to build a business around their work. And today I'm doing an art business audit for Printed Obsession. I'm going to show you what they're doing right, what's getting in the way, and exactly what I'd do if I were running their business. If you're interested in finding opportunities to license your work, you're going to want to see this one. Printed Obsession has been operating since 2009, when their founder, Morgan, started digitally modeling creatures and characters for tabletop role-playing games. Morgan's a brilliant sculptor, and he built a six-figure business selling digital files of his creations to 3D print hobbyists and players, primarily through subscriptions on Patreon and niche 3D printing platforms like My Mini Factory. That market boomed during the pandemic, and Printed Obsession boomed with it. But the 3D print hobbyist market has been dropping ever since, and the platforms selling subscriptions are prioritizing larger studios who can bring in more revenue for them. So today, Printed Obsession is struggling. It's time to pivot to something else, and Morgan asked me to help him understand where he might take it. So here's what I found. There's a booming market right next door to this declining one that Morgan is absolutely well positioned to build something even larger in. Before I get into my diagnosis and what I'd change, I want to show you the three core strengths that Printed Obsession has already built. Everything I'm going to recommend is built on top of these three things. So if you're an artist watching this, you need to think about what strengths you've built for your business. Their first strength is almost 2 decades running a business. Printed Obsession started in 2009. They have experience navigating platform growth, customer service, content creation, pricing decisions, accounting, all the hard lessons that come with running a business over a long period of time. That experience doesn't disappear when your market shifts, it transfers. So every difficult thing they figured out in the 3D print subscription business applies to whatever they build next. Their second strength is a deep knowledge of the tabletop role-playing game market. Operating a business in this space since 2009 means Printed Obsession knows this market from the inside. They know what players want, what game masters need, what good looks like, what sells and what doesn't, which communities matter, which platforms are active. Most people trying to enter this market spend years building that knowledge, and Printed Obsession already has it. Their third strength is a big one. They have years worth of intellectual property that hasn't been fully monetized yet. Look at these characters. Every one of them has a name, a personality, a backstory, a motivation. Printed Obsession has been building much more than digital files in a business to sell them over the last 17 years. They've been building a universe, and that's an asset that should be generating much more revenue than it is today, in multiple ways, across multiple formats, and to multiple audiences for a very long time. So here's what I see. The market selling digital miniature files to 3D print hobbyists is declining, but the broader TTRPG market is booming. It's growing at 12% per year and is projected to reach $6 billion by 2035. When a market's growing at double digits like that, that means there are likely people in that market not being served well by existing businesses. There's room for new businesses to step in, to enter it, and to fill that gap. So if Printed Obsession is already running a business in that market, has 17 years of experience in it, and a catalog of intellectual property that would make larger studios salivate, why aren't they booming with it? I think they're just stuck in the wrong corner of the market. And this is a problem that I see from a lot of artists who are building a business around their art. Printed Obsession didn't build a business around their creative identity. They built a business around a delivery format, around a medium, digital files for 3D printing, monthly subscription drops, platform-dependent distribution. The medium became the business model, and the business model became the identity. This happens to artists all the time. Photographers think they're in the photography business. Ceramicists think they're in the pottery business. Illustrators who think they're in the commission business. They define themselves by what they make and how they deliver it, instead of by what their work means and who it's for. And when the delivery format shifts in a market, and markets always shift, the whole business feels like it's collapsing because it was built on the format instead of on the foundation, the creative identity. The foundation for Printed Obsession was always the universe and the characters in it. The 3D files were just how they got them to people. And there are lots of other ways to get a universe to people. So that decline isn't from a lack of their talent. Their work is extraordinary. It's not a failure of effort. Morgan's been working hard. It's a structural problem with where the business was built. And structural problems have structural solutions. Structural problems are also the hardest to see when you're inside them. Everything feels like a talent problem or an effort problem when the real issue is underneath both of those. If you think you might be facing a structural problem like this, it's time to take a step back from the grind of keeping it going so you can look objectively at your business. So that's my diagnosis. 17 years of brilliant creative work, a market that's shifting, and a business that was built on a delivery format instead of the foundation that has future significant value. In the next part, I'll show you what I'd actually do about it. Priority 1 is about freeing up room to build what's next. Priority 2 is building what's next. And priority 3 is building habits that create what's next while making sure that the market doesn't shift out from under them in the future. Stay tuned for part 2, and if you'd like me to help with your art business this way, book an audit with me. Multi-million-dollar art licensing deals are possible for any artist, seriously. But step 1 is getting out of your own way. I'm Professor Steven, and I teach independent artists how to build a business around their work. And this is part 2 of my art business audit for Printed Obsession and their founder Morgan, who built a 6-figure business selling 3D printable characters for tabletop games. Printed Obsession is struggling, but I think they're on the edge of a 7 or 8-figure business, and I want to help them get there. In part 1, I diagnosed what I think's happening. Now, here's what I'd do about it if I were running their business. Their first priority is to consolidate their existing business. Printed Obsession's core market, the 3D printing hobbyist market, is in a race to the bottom. The problem with running a business in a market like that is that it sucks up all your energy trying to save it, leaving no room for resources to build something new. And the deeper the decline goes, the more resources and energy you have to pump into it to keep the business afloat. You get a smaller and smaller return on that effort, which means you have to keep pumping more and more in. It's a vicious cycle. So priority 1 is to stop that cycle. So let's look at where Printed Obsession is spending their resources right now. They're currently operating across 14 platforms that I could see, including 8 buying destinations. That's 14 presences to maintain. And if every social platform they're on, we're feeding into every buying platform, that's 48 different sales funnels. That's impossible for a business at Printed Obsession's size to actually maintain, especially in a market that's in decline where they have to chase business. And if you're counting up your own platforms right now, I want you to do that math too. How many funnels are you actually maintaining? Because being spread too thin looks the same whether you're in a declining market or a growing one. Meanwhile, the print platforms at the center of Printed Obsession's business are recognizing that they're in decline too. They're trying to save their own businesses. So they're prioritizing large studios over independent creators to generate more income with less effort. Building the future on those same platforms just doesn't make sense. So I recommend Printed Obsession consolidates from 14 to 4 platforms for the existing business. My Mini Factory and Patreon as the buying platforms, since they carry the deepest catalog and the most established subscriber relationships, and then TikTok and Instagram as the social platforms, cross-posting rather than creating unique content for each. Everything else goes into maintenance mode. Printed Obsession also has a royalty relationship with a retailer called Only Games to sell finished miniatures through their platform. They have over 6,000 reviews and a strong rating there. So the relationship with Only Games should stay because it generates passive royalty income without requiring ongoing effort. And that's a good template for future relationships. This consolidation frees up the time and energy for priority 2, which is building what's next. Here's what I want Morgan and every artist watching this to understand. The intellectual property in this catalog is licensable in ways that go well beyond selling files or even physical miniatures. Toys, stories, comics, animation, video games, clothing, every major entertainment franchise started as a creative identity with a connected audience. The mechanism that unlocks all of those opportunities is the same. Build an audience of fans and a brand that means something to them. So don't be afraid to think big. That's the North Star, and the path to it starts right now with intellectual property that already exists. If I were running Printed Obsession, I'd stop being in the business of 3D printing, miniatures, or subscriptions. I'd build and sell a universe. The stories tied to the original characters in Printed Obsession's catalog tell me that their universe already exists, whether they intended to build it or not. Every character has a name, a personality, the hint of a story that was developed to sell 3D printed files and collections. I'd lean into that, but with a different purpose. Named characters with relationships and stories between them, a universe with a history and a tone, an aesthetic that's unmistakably theirs, dark and intricate. Give it a name and give it a home. Completely separate from Printed Obsession, a new creative identity that exists beyond any one format or medium, with a new brand presence built for a new and expanding audience. The target audience shifts from 3D print hobbyists to tabletop players and game masters, the people sitting around the table who want their campaign world to feel real, who want characters with stories behind them, who want to be transported somewhere specific when they encounter a piece of art. And that buyer is part of a growing market at 12% a year. A growth rate that high means there's plenty of room for new businesses to enter that market. And Morgan likely knows that buyer better than anyone after 17 years building inside that world. But the first priority with a new direction isn't selling, it's building an audience. Pick one platform where players are most active and start publishing the universe there under a new identity. Show the characters, tell their stories, build the world in public. Let people fall in love with your IP before asking them to buy anything. This is something so many artists and entrepreneurs get wrong. They build something and then try to sell it before they know if demand exists and before they've built that brand connection with an audience that's required to sell it. So build your audience first, design your offering second. When the audience starts to build and you understand what resonates, then you can test offers. The goal with early offers is to explore selling beyond the 3D print file format. This could come in the form of box sets or tokens for virtual tabletop gaming, but don't limit yourself to what's already being sold. Let your audience tell you their aspirations and show you gaps where they are not being served well. Then step in to fill them. Also, don't be limited by what you can do alone. You've already shown the ability to partner with Only Games. Continue with that spirit. Build relationships with writers, designers, manufacturers, retailers, and brands who can help bring your universe to life. One immediate opportunity might be to license your work to indie game developers. Not only do you not have to bring the full universe to market alone, you don't actually want to. Partnerships extend your reach and build momentum in your fan base faster than you can do it alone. Just make sure you retain ownership rights over your work. And that's true for any artist exploring partnerships. The collaboration can be as expansive as you want, but the IP stays yours. So that's the plan for their existing business and for what comes next. Consolidate to stop the vicious cycle and free up resources and time. Build a universe around the IP that already exists. Build an audience before selling. Keep the North Star in view. Creative identity that's licensable well beyond tabletop gaming. In part 3, I'll cover the habit that makes all of this sustainable. Because the story of Printed Obsession isn't just about one business in decline. It's about what happens when you don't build learning into your business model early enough. So stay tuned for part 3, and if you'd like me to help with your art business this way, book an audit with me. Multi-million-dollar art licensing deals aren't magic and they aren't luck. They happen when you build deliberate systems to find and capture them. I'm Professor Steven. I teach independent artists how to build a business around their work. And this is part 3 of my art business audit for Printed Obsession and their founder, Morgan, who built a 6-figure business selling 3D printable characters for tabletop games. Printed Obsession is struggling, but I think they're on the edge of a 7 or 8-figure business, and I want to help them get there. In part 1, I diagnosed what I think's happening. In part 2, I advised how I'd run their existing business and what I'd build next. Now here's how I'd ensure those plans are successful and keep them from struggling again in the future. Priority 1 for Printed Obsession is consolidating their existing business to stop the vicious cycle of a business in decline and to free up resources to build what's next. Priority 2 is to build a universe and an audience in the tabletop role-playing game market using the 17 years of intellectual property they've already created. Priority 3 is building a habit of experimentation into their business model. The market that built Printed Obsession peaked years ago. The decline has been visible in the data for a long time. And this isn't failure on Morgan's part. Every market is constantly shifting. And every market will eventually decline. He couldn't have prevented that. But a systematic habit of experimentation would have caught the signal earlier, and it would have allowed Printed Obsession to shift with the market before the decline was as deep as it is now. Experimentation helps your business learn about markets and the buyers within them. So that means it's not just a habit that will protect what Printed Obsession builds next. It's also the habit that will help them build that next thing in the first place. It'll tell them what's working and what isn't along the way. An experiment isn't trying something and hoping it works. It's a specific hypothesis, a specific action, and a specific measurement, and a decision about what to do based on what you learn. It doesn't have to be complicated, it just has to be intentional. For the new universe, every decision is an experiment. Which character gets the most engagement? Which story format holds attention the longest? Which visual style generates saves and shares? What happens when you ask a question versus making a statement to your audience? Each of these is answerable with data if you're watching for it. And then for the consolidation of Printed Obsession, the data is already there. Which models are selling consistently? Which subscription tier has the lowest churn? What do the timing patterns and the sales data tell you about when to release new content? Start reading it deliberately instead of reacting to the overall trend. You can start simple with experimentation, but my favorite framework for building new products and new businesses is called design thinking. It's the framework I teach in my entrepreneurship courses and the one that I use to build my own businesses too. So here's what I want every artist to take away from Printed Obsession's story. You're probably not in the business you think you're in. If you've been making work for more than a few years, you've almost certainly built more intellectual property than you recognize. Characters, worlds, a visual language, a point of view, a way of seeing things that nobody else has. That's an asset. And most artists are charging for the raw materials to access it instead of building a business around the asset itself. The medium trap is everywhere. The photographer who thinks they're selling prints, the illustrator who thinks they're selling commissions, the sculptor who thinks they're selling files. What you're actually selling, or what you could be selling if you build the business right, is the creative identity behind all of it. That identity has so much more opportunity for you than any format ever will. And if you'd like me to help find that opportunity with your business the way I did with Printed Obsession, book an audit with me. So Morgan, you have the ingredients of a multi-million-dollar business. Years of experience operating a business at scale, years of insider knowledge in a specific market, and years of brilliant intellectual property with significant headroom to monetize. Everything holding you back is structural, and structural problems can be solved. You have the foundation, and I can't wait to see where you take it.